See, we kind of have a surfing theme today, right? Once again, I'm Ryan Keitlin. I'm the Program Director for Innovation Entrepreneurship, Master of Science. And on behalf of the business and graduate schools, we're doing one-on-one panels today and for Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we're concluding with Brett Wessel. He is the owner of Liquid Confidence, and we'll get started talking to him. So welcome, Brett, please. I just found out that it is 2 years to the day that Brett graduated from Full Sail University. 2014 music business graduate. So tell us about your business. Tell us about Liquid Confidence.
Oh, where to begin? Yeah, everybody can hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Yeah, where to begin? Well, I studied music business, bachelor's degree here at Full Sail, from Tucson, Arizona. So desert life, didn't really have much water growing up, so I tended to soak it up when I moved to Florida. But yeah, I finished my program about 5-6 months before I graduated. Really hit me after I moved out here that I really loved surfing. It kind of hit my 18th birthday. I actually learned in Hawaii to surf, and it was just in the back of my mind. But I knew when I got out here, I was going to buy a board. Any free days I had off from Full Sail, I did my homework, go to the beach, just had some fun, and it started really moving me a little bit more. Doing my assignments, it was a lot towards the music, but anytime we got twined with the entertainment business students, we could do any type of project, any subject. So I was kind of tending to go to surf a little bit more, and I just kind of really had to be true to myself. That it was just really the passion was taking over a little bit more, and so I was just slowly transitioning. But during that time, I busted a couple of my boards that I bought. It cost me a little bit more money and time to have my board get fixed. So I was like, well, I got to fix my board. I got to learn how to do it. So I learned. And then once I learned some of the materials of the board, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to just test myself out a little bit. I kind of want to just make my own. I think it would be cool, just a fun little project. So I started doing my research on how to do all of it, and found some materials off Craigslist and just bought it and went for it. And I didn't know if I was really going to enjoy it or not. I actually really enjoyed it. It just was a craft that a lot of people, you have to have a lot of patience for it. But I really enjoyed it, and I just made my first board, and it just kind of went from there. So, but throughout the program, towards the end of it, I just started really thinking of coming up with a name. I was like, well, if I make a board, I got to put my own name and logo on it. This can't be a plain board. I want to spice things up a little bit. So it just started from there, just planning and yeah, a little bit of it.
That's great. And so throughout, you're in courses and you're learning things that are hopefully going to help you on this journey. So what did you learn, in those last maybe 6 months coming up to graduation from Full Sail that kind of helped you right when you got out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the really cool thing, a lot of people ask, what did you study? I said, music business. Oh, well, what are you doing with music? Well, a little bit, I could always do some stuff with making videos and everything, but I'm like, well, I changed, but I'm actually using my degree, my business portion of the degree. Music was a really good subject, in my opinion, because there's so much that went on in the industry that you could take and learn from that and go to other industries. And so throughout the last part of my program, we're really focusing on making business plans, marketing, everything on that part. And that's exactly what I'm doing. That's where I'm building a foundation for, really setting ground levels for it. So as I was doing the last portions of my program, as I was switching industries, I was also doing extra projects on the side and taking business plans and starting to make it. Actually, my last final project, I worked with another guy who in Annie's class. Yep. We ended up doing a little scenario at a music festival, but taking a one of those flow riders. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're a little surf spot that they generate the water and you could just have fun on it. So we were talking about bringing that into a surf festival. So I mean, I was slowly bringing things in to my program that was still along the course lines, but also learning from it, because anything that you could take from thinking into outside terms, like, well, would it really be realistic that I would actually do that with my company right now? No, because it does cost a lot of money. But just thinking about things in taking it in a scenario like, hey, that's something that might be doable, but maybe tone it down to my level where I want to take the company. Meaning maybe taking a little bit of this stuff to a flea market or little events that go around. It's a little bit smaller steps, but thinking in terms through my projects, what I could be doing on the side, with my brand and my company. So
That's great. And it's such an interesting jump, right? From taking an idea, and even if it's in school, it's kind of a safe space, right? You can make mistakes, you can learn, you can grow, and actually saying, okay, I'm going to do this. Tell us about that decision. How are you dealing with that? And what was it like to take that risk?
There's so many risks. I'm more one that kind of likes to plan things out, and it's been a challenge for me is just to really, all right, let's plan, let's make this happen, and then we'll kind of move. But sometimes it just takes doing it, and I'm very reserved on my money. A lot of this all comes out of my pocket. I have extra jobs, so I could pay bills. Unfortunately, I have bills. But taking it, what can I do? I always have to ask my questions, one common thing during the last month of Full Sails and Annie's class, I remember going up to her and I was like, I have a really big dilemma. I was like, I'm always out surfing and I have my board. It's a piece of marketing. That's what it is. It's sporting equipment. So people come up to me, they ask me about my boards. They like the designs, but we're out in the water. You're in board shorts, you're in a wetsuit, you don't have anything else. No electronics, unless now you have your little phone devices. But I'm like, how can you exchange numbers? If somebody's like, hey, that was a really cool board. Oh, you shape. I'm interested in a board. Well, how can I get my information out? So we started talking a little bit and I was like, well, let me look into those plastic cards. I could put them in my board shorts and, hand it to people. Well, I looked it up, being a student, kind of a poor student, didn't really have much money to shell out, So I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, the plastic cards, only for a few hundred, were about like $250. They would look really cool, but I don't want to shell out that money because I could be developing boards with that money. So I just went home. Andy's like, you're creative. You'll think of something. So I went home and I was like, I build this stuff. I have a whole bunch of extra materials just laying around in the studio. I don't like to throw things away. I like to recycle things. So I decided that I want to make business cards out of my little scrap wood piles. So I went home, made my little business cards, came back, and I showed it to her. Cool thing. They float. They're all extra materials. So, it was either I could have maybe made the purchase and spent a whole bunch of money and then figure out that I could have done something that takes some time, but it's cheaper.
So that's creative and frugal at the same time,
Yeah.
right? And that's pretty cool, right? You've gotten a lot of comments about that and a lot of positive reactions. I mean, that'd seem pretty cool to get.
Yeah, I get people all the time. They're just like, "Oh, this is so cool," and I mean, I've given those things out, and everybody's like, "You got more?" And I'm like, "Well, I got to make them." So that's the only downfall of it. But I don't mind. It's extra materials when I build the boards. But in a sense, it's small things that I like to think about before. I try not to. We don't want to make the mistakes, but what's learning if you don't make the mistakes, right? So I try to really think like what's going to be best. What's the best direction for the business? But I have made decisions that they don't really work out. Or let's go this route. I want to make a website, but I don't really know how to make a website. I know how simple stuff. I've been working with a few Full Sail students, but life after Full Sail, a lot of people get jobs. Most of the people, my classmates, have moved out of Florida. So I did an internship here back when there was Mojo Brands Media with the Daily Buzz and Emotion Mojo. I was doing the social media work for them, and I met a guy that was doing web design for them, and he was a Full Sail student. So we were working together, and he found out about my boards, and was really interested in helping me build a website. So we were working with WordPress, and I was still getting familiar with it. And he was like, "Yeah, you can make a good professional website, all this." And we were chatting, had good ideas. We sat down on our own time, started planning things out, and I bought the URLs, I bought everything, and we're ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the next day, he comes up to me and says he got a job and he's transferring to Alabama in a week and a half, something like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I guess I got my learning cut out for me. I'm gonna, I'm all about learning. So at the time, I'm like, cool, it's a challenge. I'll, Google things. I'll look up videos, just tutorials. Well, now for me, it takes some time. But now we're talking about, I got orders from people, so I'm building surfboards. I got going to work. I got a lot of things going on, so it kind of just was off to the side. And I know there's other platforms that you could go build simple websites, and so it was just kind of like a quick decision. It's like, I need a running website. People are always asking me about it. I have a Facebook, but a website it's a website. Eventually, my goals are to get to an online store, but it was just a decision that I had to make. That, you know what, I have this URL. There was a lot of hassle trying to get things transferred. I just didn't want to go through it. So, you know what, let me try something new. Really, where I'm getting at is, for me, it being a foundation, I'm building a foundation. So I need to know what I'm doing, but also I want to have control over it. I don't want to have to rely too much on people, especially since I am in a beginning stage. I can't really pay people to do work. So we have to kind of balance it out to see how I could help you, you help me, kind of deal. But in a sense that if I can't rely on someone to help me out, what can I do? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I not? What can I do to make it so that I know? And that's just some of the risks that, there's a whole bunch. But
and it seems like you're managing your risk. I think there might be a misconception too that, especially your first business, that you have to have everything ready to roll when you launch your doors. Like, you have to have the website set up, you have to have your marketing done, you have to have all this funding, you have to have the people hired, you have to have a space to sell. And just listening to you right now, it sounds like that you have a good foundation, you have your idea, but you're taking those steps, right? And explain to me some of the challenges with that. Where do you see yourself in the next year or two, and that sort of thing?
Oh yeah. So I have tons of ideas. I'm one that I actually had to tell myself, even before I started this, to just slow down and do things right. I was always wanted, like, let's just do something really quick and then it's done. Cool. But it takes more than that. And I really want to do things right. So really taking the time and thinking things through thoroughly to get to I want. So I understood. I had to tell myself, it's going to take time, and that's okay. Things are going to happen. The industry that I'm working in, there's thousands of shapers. There's other people. This is not something that's new, but really defining what's going to stand me out compared to other shapers. So that's since I started, that's really been the whole thought. What can I do that's going to make me different, besides the name, the logos, all that, because it's being done. The surf industry is changing rapidly. It's becoming more popular. But what can I do here locally? How can I get that out? So it's really just defining between surfboard models, but mainly getting people to ride the boards, because I'm essentially selling sporting equipment. So I can't just make a board and just like, here you go. I need feedback. So I'm selling boards for cheap. I'm giving people free boards, and I want their feedback.
Great. Well, let's talk about some of the stuff you brought here. Kind of starting with your board here. So you brought a number of different props. Why don't you just kind of walk us through it a little bit?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm really big on recycling. So this is one of the more recent boards that I have built. When I go for my own boards, usually I kind of keep in mind what I would kind of ride. So I designed this one. It's kind of hard to see it being in the audience, but we got all these cool just vinyl sticker logos. As I build the boards, I learn more about the materials and what works and what doesn't. I've had a lot of mistakes in the studio, so sometimes it's a bummer, but sometimes when I find the success, it works. So working with different materials and the vinyl stickers that I've been able to create just made this really cool textured board. And but this, when I make this, I get extra material. So yet again, I say slight hoarder of trash, I could say, but it's good because what can I do instead of throwing things away? A lot of, actually, you'll find it in the surf community. A lot of people are huge on recycling. So people are saying there's too many boards out there. There's a lot of debris on the beaches. You know, it's all there. So what can I do instead of throwing this stuff away? What can I do to make it? So like an example for this little item here, this is actually, you can see it from here. This part, it's a basic surfboard is a piece of foam that you have to shape. So this I cut off when I get my dimensions. There's pieces of foam that's going to be coming off, just like wood scraps. But I have this big old chunk, and I'm like, well, I could use it for surfboard repairs, but this is a pretty big chunk of foam. You know, my friend and I come up with some really cool ideas. So I ended up coming up with this idea. This is actually a shelf, if you can imagine it being hooked to a wall. So you could place items up on top here. So it looks like a surfboard's kind of coming out of your wall. So just kind of coming up with ideas. I painted it. You know, all this material is actually, this blue is the same. Actually, it's a little different than this blue, but as a board that I built for a guy out in California, as I mix resin and I put the resin over the board, sometimes I have a little extra. So I prepare materials like this so that when instead of throwing the materials away, I could use it and make new things. So this is one part. This is one thing that I built. And now, in that sense, I do want to say that a lot of this stuff, you know, I have a lot of family I'm from Tucson, Arizona. I have a lot of family and friends that actually don't surf. So I don't expect everybody to buy surfboards. They're larger purchases, but what can I do? You know, a lot of people like this overall scenery of surf. So what can I do that's going to get to the people who want to support my brand that don't surf? So coming up with these little ideas, you know, my family back in Arizona could go and purchase these things. They could throw them up on their house, you know, whatever they want to do. But really, it really touches me because I could just be creative. That's
pretty cool. Is that like a coat rack there? Or?
Yeah. So this was another one that I did. Yeah, it's a coat.
Or a hat rack.
Actually, was using this as a towel rack in my bathroom for a little while. But you could hang up your hats, whatever you want, keys. Eventually, I'm going to make some smaller ones. But this cool little thing. Yet again, just extra materials for that. And this one, you know, and I'll do artwork here. So kind of saying the same blue resin that I had, kind of, if you could see it, it's drizzled all over here. These little pieces of wood were actually actually built a longboard skateboard for a friend, and it was just a little tester, my first one made. And so I had all this other scrap material. I was kind of bored one day, and I was like, just throw it up together. I just made just whatever it was, you know, and it just came out the way it is. And I was like, yeah, it's really cool, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So just whatever I want to do is really, it's just the creative side, you know. I try to let myself just relax a little bit. You know, I'll have my orders, but once resin's laying down, I can't touch this board. It's got to dry. So what else can I be doing on my spare time while the board's drying? I can't work on it. Maybe I have other boards to work on, but if I'm done, let's go do something else. You know, let's create some cool stuff.
And what's interesting about this too is that you seem to, you know, use every part of what you're using, right? Because you're a business owner and you have fixed costs, and you have variable costs and all that stuff. You mentioned the resin, right? You're done with the board. What do you do with this extra resin? You don't want to throw it away because you're paying for every little thing in your business, right?
Exactly.
And where are you shaping these boards? Do you have are you using like an in-home area, or do you have a facility, or?
Yeah, so I actually do an in-home. So my garage is my studio. I convert the whole thing into a shaping room and then a resin room. You kind of have to keep them separated because a lot of debris is, you know, when I'm we call it planing the board. It's actually the most snow you'll ever see in Florida, by the way. You get styrofoam boards. It's usually the most material that I use. But when you know the beads in the foam, as you're planing it, they fly everywhere. So I'll get piles of foam. So yet again, the snow. But you don't want that stuff to get into the resin. It will stick on here and it just will ruin it. Same with bugs. They will just like fly right in here and just stick on there. It's the worst having to go back to the boards and pick out the bugs. So you kind of have to just kind of make a spot for it and really just like, this is a garage, but this is not use for car space. This is my surfboard stuff. I will use parts of my home too, doing the artwork. So I just recently relocated to Satellite Beach, so I'm getting everything all set up and everything. So just cheaper way to pay one rent, and that's it.
And it sounds like you're hearing about the lean startup method, basically, and some of the other speakers today talked about that when they started out doing very similar things to what you're doing. So, you mentioned these great ideas you have. Where in like 5 years do you see yourself? Where do you see your business? What will you be doing?
That's a very good question. So, I have my ideas that I'm planning for. My goal is to, like I said, I'm building my foundation. Right now, I'm getting feedback from surfers from here, California, trying to expand that. But to really solidify certain models of boards, but my main goal is to really get my online business going. And there are definitely some loops and holes that I got to go through, and I'm doing my research and saving up the money. But I would really like to get the online store going. I have some good ideas about videos and auctions, and those plans. I want to do it right. So really finding people that will be wanting to work with me, but also that I feel is passionate about it and wants to work for it. So those are a few goals. It's just really the marketing. The marketing is the biggest thing. I see a lot of other shapers out there that they're just buy my boards. Well, who are you? You know, what's your brand? Why should I buy your board compared to a brand that I know of? So really putting myself out there, talking to the people. It's a lot of word by mouth right now. It's the best way to get equipment. I'm also a surf instructor, but one of the instructors actually, she wanted to ride one of my boards. I built it for myself. She wrote it and she loved it. She was like, I want this board. It was a little hard for me to give up just because it's one of my artworks, but I was like, you know what? I see that you're riding on it, and you look great on it, and you say it's a beautiful board, not gonna lie. But she was like, I haven't been able to do those maneuvers before on this board. I really like this. So I was like, you know what? I will sell it because I could always make another one. And next thing you know, she didn't tell me, but she entered in surf competition and she got third place. And people were asking about the board. So things that I didn't know, but because I made that sale, things are already because people are writing my boards, people are going to see that, people I don't know. And that just I was really stoked when I heard that. I was like, really? You didn't tell me? I could have come and take photos. And she was like, oh, I was really nervous. My first competition. So I was like, okay, understandable, but give me photos. Give me a heads up next time, So
and that kind of stuff is so valuable too, because it's not part of your marketing campaign of getting that word of mouth, but when people use it and they're actually performing well with a sporting equipment area that you're using, I mean, that just gives you confidence more.
Yeah. Hence the name.
Excuse the pun. And what you're doing. So you mentioned your foundation too. Yeah. You want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Yeah. So kind of going back to the marketing, it's just my whole goal is to really have a really tight kind of family within the brand. I think it was one of the best ways to have a job. Honestly, I hate applying for jobs. I just never really liked it. I never really liked having the boss and trying to work my way up. I just rather, let's all be friends. Let's all have a good time and work for something that we like a common goal to all have. So finding people who are really passionate about the brand, who love the surf industry, who want to work, who want to proceed with their goals. So I have a couple photographers who want to pursue photography. So how can I help you? You help me, kind of thing. So,
and I know of a photographer that was just up here.
Yeah, minutes. Right. We're going to be chatting for a little bit here.
and Brett, being a recent graduate and taking these steps right now, any advice that you give, we have a diverse group of students here, and even online too, that may not exactly go into a product-driven business, but man, these are life lessons through any business. Any advice do you have for them?
Definitely don't. Well, if people offer help and it feels right and it's good for your brand, go for it. I mean, that's one that I'm very much like, let me do it. I got to be in control, but sometimes getting the extra help will help. I mean, I can't tell you how much times like I've been stressing just to get things done. And some of my friends like, I could help, I could do something, but it's like, no, it's my baby, but I could, actually use the help. So sometimes if it feels right, if you're trying to make a project happen and somebody's showing their passion for it, let them in a little bit, let them get some help. It's not a bad thing, as long as it feels right. But definitely do your research. It doesn't hurt to do research and learn some new things. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert on websites or videography, but I could learn a little bit. So, and this goes into any industry. Just knowing what you're getting yourself into, do your research. I've spent some money that I probably could have saved instead of spending it. So just really watch what you're doing, but as long as it feels right.
All right. That's great. Now we're going to open up for some questions from our audience for Brett.
Thank you for coming because this is really good. You're doing all this recycling by yourself, making stuff because it'll really save you a lot of money in the long run. I had a question. Have you finished your website yet? Because if not, I can help you with that because I'm really good at it.
Hey, I appreciate it. So, yeah, like I said before, I was working a little bit with WordPress. I actually just changed it back to Wix. It's something that I could quickly, do. But I would love, any help, any suggestions. I'm all about it. I guess right now I started working on my new one. It should be up and running, but there's a lot of coming soon, stuff that is still missing. But if that means getting opinions, ideas, help, I'm all for it. So we'll have to talk.
My question was, as I listened to you, it seems that you're a very resourceful person. And I know in our program, I'm in the EBM program. Oh, thank you. So a big part of that is planning out your pro forma. Yeah, I died on that. So you were talking about your expenses and how you're still using a lot of your own finances to run your company. So what would you tell someone who is, as graduates in here, we're about to, we're in our final stage before graduation. If you don't have that big lump sum of money to start your business, or you haven't found the right investors to do it, how would you encourage them, to do it with what they have?
Yeah. I mean, so it depends on what you're trying to do. Really, like I say, get the brand out there and really make it why people should be, supporting your product. Which to me, what's worked really for me for that is showing your passion. I could talk people's ears off about my surfboards and my stories and all that. But as long as I would say as long as you have a plan. So a lot of people have told me, oh, you're underselling your surfboards. Your prices are low. Why? You could be selling for so much more. And the reason for it, I have reasons. Like I said, there's other shapers out there. You're going to be competing with other people. You're trying to really form your brand. So I've done my cost. There's a reason why I could sell it for lower. First, I'm doing it more for wholesale price and then retail. Retail surfboards could average about $400 to $500. Mine, I really sell. It depends on the brand. It could go up from there, but maybe about 300. Sometimes it will be a little lower because if I have a buddy, that could be supporting, I'll go for it. But doing the budgeting for it, I'm still in the end going to be making some money. What I actually ended up doing, back to Craigslist, bought materials super cheap from this guy down in Miami and was able to take those products, do my research. I know how much everything costs, which was the best way to buy it, the cheapest way, because I'm learning, and how much that costs, but not overpricing it, but not underpricing it. How much can I make? So making a couple extra $100 off each board, but I'm also getting practice. So sometimes I'll take a little bit less because I end up throwing all that money right back in. It's a big old pool. I started off, actually saved my own money, started off with about $1,000, and just slowly spent money. I didn't want you could take those purchases. I could have taken those business cards for $250. I could have taken each blank could cost anywhere from $50 to $100. I could just buy all this, but instead I did my research, figured out a way to do it a little bit cheaper, make some products, got some sales, and it's just bringing that money in. So over the year, by doing that, I was able to take my first board I ever shaped on was on 2 cardboard boxes. It was pretty funny. I saw a photo not too long ago, all the way to building a full studio. So replenishing that money, and it takes time. You're not gonna. I'm not in here to make tons of money. I have my goals, but just slowly working it so that it works for you, but also you're getting your products, your brands out there. So, well, thank you.
Hi, I actually have 2 questions in one. You mentioned passion. I wanted to know, a lot of people are passionate about things since they were younger, and they want to fulfill that because of that desire they had when they were younger. And you mentioned you liked surfing based off of when you went to Hawaii at 18. So, what made you say, from this moment on, this is what I want to do? And how did you present it to people who didn't see the potential? Because in my case, let's say I tell people I want to be a rapper. People laugh and, oh, a rapper, that's 1 in a million. Or how are you gonna succeed in that industry? And there's millions of competitions and stuff like that. So what made you say, you know what, I'm gonna put my time, energy, and I'm gonna see where this goes?
It's a very good question. So, growing up in Arizona, I was really big in the music. I studied for many years. I played, and I still have that passion for my music. People, I still do it, but not as much. So, I don't know. For me, it was just really, instead of all my parents know I'm going to college for music business. I have to, I'm going to finish. I did, and I got to get a job. Instead, I was kind of had the idea when I would go through college, just really think about life. You're going for something. I have my goals. I was really interested in live shows, and as I studied it, it just kind of really, it was there, but it wasn't. It just really started coming down a little bit more. I was actually getting more excited about going to the beach or looking at surfboards, and really just thinking about my life. When I was younger, I actually would sit in my room drawing little logos. I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool if I had like my own skate brand and all this. So maybe it was just somewhere deep down inside that I knew that maybe I wanted to do that instead. But maybe it was just the whole thing. Oh, you go to college, you study this subject, you get a job in that that field. But really what had changed, I really just had to be like, what? It's okay. I told my parents eventually, I was like, what? I know I'm studying music business, but I really like the surfing, the industry, the people, the culture. It just really clicks for me. And a lot of people will say for the surfing, well, everybody does it, there's no money in it. I've had some negative people that have built boards and like, it's nothing. I'm like, I just look back and I'm like, well, there's a way, there's a way you could do it. If you have your ideas, why not go for it? Yet there's times you're going to fail, but you're going to succeed as long as you keep that in mind. To me, it's a lot of mental stuff that you have to go through. So just really accepting that change and some people are going to approve, some people aren't, and you just have to stay true to yourself and what your goals are and where you want to be. So. Yeah, you're welcome.
Hello, I was just wondering more about the creative process, like what you go through when designing a board, and also how long it takes to like fully build the board, stuff like that.
So it's a really good question. That's actually a common one I get a lot of time. It really varies on the size of the board. I actually made a couple big old 11-foot stand-up paddle boards that took up my entire studio. So it took a lot longer compared to when it's a little bit smaller. But it really depends. I've had a few sales out in California. I'm starting to get a lot more out here. So it depends. I'm really big on really customizing boards. You guys, you want a photo on there, you want a saying, whatever it is, a certain color. I work with my clients. So also depending on how long the response is from them. But I will recommend things for them. Once we set up a plan, we got the dimensions, everything, it's game time. So depending on what they want, yet again, like this one, it took me a little while because I had to do a lot of the decals. There's a lot of fine print for it. So it took me a little bit longer. But when I'm on my when I'm on my route, nobody's distracting me. I'm all for it. So
I saw your artwork too. Did you do this on my hand?
this is actually through a
A vinyl?
vinyl sticker machine.
Cool.
So, but going through the computer and finding the images or decals, what I wanted to be, sizing it, everything. I just printed out a whole bunch and just ended up once they were all printed out, I'm like, all right, here's a board. This is my idea. This is my vision for it. And then I just started putting them all over, and it just, turned out to be a lot better than what it was in my head, but which is not a bad thing. So taking the time, it really does. You have to really consider. I mean, this goes into the sciences of the resins. But once I could shape a board in just a few hours if I have the dimensions and the time, it's done. But now you're talking about the artwork of putting a fiberglass and resins down. So depends on what kind you use and how you mix it. Some could be it could dry faster, and sometimes it's a little bit slower. So when I first started, I got the real slow stuff because I didn't know how I was going to deal with it. I heard it was just messy and all this, and soon found out that it kind of was. So I've been able to, doing the boards, I've pinpointed down to how much I really need and what it's like. So sometimes I can do it faster now. The more practice, the better you're going to get. But just considering it, doing all the sanding, the resins and everything, the artwork. My goal is always to try to get a board done once plans are set in about 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a little bit longer than that. Yet again, I'm still learning new products. I actually had a stand-up paddle board that the resin didn't cure right. So it ended up taking about 5 months, and it's stuck in my storage for a little bit just to dry. And I wasn't even sure if it was going to dry. That's another story, but there's some bumps that you might have to go through. But in the end, you learn from it, but you definitely have to delegate your time correctly. I'd have to say that personally for me.
Over here, I had actually two questions for you. First one is, I understand that you like working like with your clients, like personally and customizing their boards and everything. But do you plan on like keep on doing that, or do you plan to like get on board with more people in order for you to produce more boards and like get this brand going? Or what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. A lot of I really like. I mean, it was one of the big things I wanted to define with my brand was personality to the boards. You got boards all over. You could go to any surf shop, you'll see all the cool little designs, but which I appreciate. It's all the artists that are doing that, but a lot of it is just the same board. You'll see different sizes, but you might see the same artwork or same style. And sometimes, trust me, I like going in the surf shops and looking all around. It's inspirational for me. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I saw that board. Somebody was riding that same board out in the water today, or I've seen that board around. My friend got a board stolen, and they couldn't really do anything about it because it was a very generic board and it just had the same stuff. But I've noticed a lot of people like to draw and put their own stickers on their boards and really make it their own board. So I'm really big on creating that for people. And but with these shapers, they will create. They have machines that will help cut the boards, so they could produce it a lot faster. They got other shapers. Down the line, I wouldn't mind having extra hands, as long as they're passionate about it. That's my big thing, that they want to carry that same idea that I have for the brand and want to make that happen. So potentially in the future, yeah.
All right. And regarding your website and launching your website and everything, once you launch your website, have you thought of working on social media, YouTube, like Instagram, whatever it may be? Do you plan on engaging with that and that type of marketing, or what are your thoughts on your marketing growing and all that?
Yeah, as we all know, you guys have probably all studied, social media is it's there. It's just one of those things you have to have. And to get your name out there, it is the most important thing. I do have plans, some ideas of using YouTube. I have a show that I'm writing that I want to produce that go along with my studio and my surfboards. It takes the time and finding the right people to help out with that. But I do plan on it. My social media, I'm not gonna lie, I do it all myself. It's kind of slacking, but yet again, I'm doing everything myself. So that's where I could use help. but coming up with different ideas and marketing is definitely in the future, because that's, to me, I have my ideas, and I have a feeling that it's just going to help increase the viewers and just help grow my social media.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, Brett. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Great having you here today. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us. Great questions from the audience, and thanks everyone that has joined us online as well.
And if anybody, I have some, if you want to come up and ask more questions, feel free to. I have some stickers and keychains, so feel free to, if you want to grab some swag, yeah.